Okay, so this is chapter 34 in Ross, the homework for 34. We have some parsing exercises that we want to look at first, and then translation work. Remember, this is the weak verbs chapter on one noon verbs. One noon verbs are verbs that are weak in which position? First root letter, and the first root letter is the letter noon. And where do we have weaknesses when we have a root one noon? When we're adding prefixes. What kind of prefixes? Stem prefixes or the imperfect prefixes. In every case, that prefix consonant is trying to close a syllable with root one. And when the noon is closing a syllable and it's butting up against a second root letter, what will it do? It will assimilate. Resistance is futile. That's right. Okay, so that's the sort of thing, the standard sort of weakness that we get with one noon verbs. Remember, the other sort of weakness that we get is what's called aphoresis. So it's the double A problem here, right? Assimilation and aphoresis. Aphoresis is where the root one noon doesn't assimilate, it just completely goes away. Or as I like to refer to it, it falls into Sheol. Okay? It's gone. It's in the grave. It's in Hades. Bye-bye. Don't see it anymore. Okay? And where are the two places that happens? The CAL, I use the acronym QUIC. The CAL imperative and the CAL infinitive construct. Okay? So CAL imperative, CAL infinitive construct. We get aphoresis of root one noon when? If my theme vowel for the imperfect is not holum. If it's not the normal holum, then I get aphoresis. Okay? And we'll look at examples of where that happens in our homework. So let's start over here with number one. And why don't you repeat after me? Tov titi. Tov titi. Okay, so this is good is this verb, titi. Something is good. What's good? This is what verb? What do you think? It's Nathan. Oh boy. Where's my root one noon in titi? It's in Sheol. That's right. It has suffered aphoresis. So where's the tav of Nathan? It's the first tav you see. So root one is missing. Root two is here. Where is my noon of Nathan, the root three noon? It's the dagesh forte right here. Yeah, so that's root three. All right. So how many of my original root letters with Nathan do I see here? I only see one root letter. I see the root one, the root two, tav. And then, where's this second tav coming from? What's that? Okay, this happens with the infinitive construct. When I have aphoresis and root one goes away, I'm usually left with root two, root three, and I get what I call the bonus tav. I get an extra tav at the end. But the noon assimilates, and I'm left with the tav and the tav of root two. All right? And when I add pronominal suffixes, I get a doubling dot where this noon finally gets to reappear. Okay? Root one, noon is gone. Right? See, there he is. He's in Sheol. Those are flames. Sorry. Okay. So, if this is the infinitive construct of Nathan, then it's who's giving? It's my giving. Yes, so my giving, my act of giving, tov, is good. Okay, so this is a verbless clause or a copular clause. So good is my act of giving. Now, if what is the normal infinitive construct of Nathan and the CAL without the pronominal suffix? What would it normally look like? It's tate. It has a sere here. Okay? So tate becomes titi. So How many syllables does Tate have? 1. Is the sere a changeable vowel? Do you remember how monosyllabic words with changeable vowels have a dagesh forte hovering above the final consonant, waiting to drop in as soon as I add extra syllables, right? And that's what happens here. I'm going to add that doubling dot, and that represents the noon that's missing anyway. Okay, so Tate becomes T. Now, why did I have to go to a Keurig here? Because once I add the Keurig yod, where's my stress? It's at the end. It's on the T part, which means the first syllable with that dagesh forte is closed, right? Because dagesh fortes close one syllable, open another. And the stress is on the Keurig yod here. So this is a cuss syllable. And the long I-class vowel has to become a short I-class vowel, which means it has to become what? It has to become a Keurig. It has to become short. Okay? So Tate becomes T. Now this reminds me of my dog. Have I told you about my dog TT? You know what it means to TT, don't you? Let's go potty. Yes, well, my dad had the funniest names for our pets. And he named one of our dogs TT. To tinkle. So we would, go calling the dog, TT, come here. And we would wonder why our neighbors would snicker at us. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized, oh, that my dog's name is a synonym for going number one. Come on, Dad. Have I told you about the Pink Panther? No. Yeah, we had a white cat, and my dad decided that he would dye the white cat red. So he soaked it in red RIT dye, and it came out pink. And then he named it the Pink Panther. So we had this outdoor cat that just had totally pink fur. What do you think happened when the pink fur wore out? Well, my dad dyed it again, pink. Yeah. All right. So Dad was good for some fun. Okay, so let's look at number 2 here. I have Tisena. Oh, by the way, if you take your verbal paradigms and go to the one noon section, that's going to be, let's see, 6 pages in. There we go. Look at the column for Nathan, and do you see, if you go all the way down to the infinitive area, the last 2 rows, you have the infinitive construct of Nathan. So there's Tate for you there, okay? There's Tate. All right. Look at number 2. I have Tisena. Say that with me. Tisena. So Tisena has, how many verbal root letters do I actually see here? I only see 2. So when we get to the one noon verbs and beyond, what we're going to be seeing is that 3 root letters are usual. That's what we've been seeing all the time. Now we're going to see 2. And the mystery will be, what's the 3rd root letter? If you look at your prefixes and suffixes, it's clear that you have a prefix tav over here and the na ending over there. And so smashed in the middle is just 2 root letters. So, is there anything to maybe give me a hint as to what the first root letter might have been? Yeah, look at that dot in the scene. What kind of dot is that? That's a dagesh forte. What might that dagesh forte represent? A doubling dot, which represents what? The noon that has assimilated. So it might be that this is the verb na sa, where I'm seeing root 2 and 3 and 1 is hiding inside as a dagesh forte. So what would the form have been if I didn't have assimilation? It would have been tin sena. Tin sena becomes tis sena, and the scene is written, which would have been written twice, is now written once with the dagesh forte. Tis sena. Okay? Now, with that in mind, which stem has a Keurig under the nutty prefix? Okay, the cal does. Does the nifal have a Keurig under the imperfect nutty prefix? It does. Cals and nifals. But what does the nifal also have in its imperfect? It's the first root letter after the prefix has a dagesh forte, which we have, but it also has under it a kametz, doesn't it? Yippakade. Yippakade. Here I don't have that. What I have is a noon that should have had a silent shava under it, which is what the cal would have wanted. Yif code, tif code, right? The root one would have been closing the syllable, and the noon that has assimilated is closing a syllable as well. So really, the way I've put the line here is just to indicate the tav prefix. But if I were doing syllable divisions, I would grab that dot to indicate that I have a closed syllable here, right? It's tis and then the sena. Tis sena. So this is a cal imperfect. And with the tav na prefix suffix, that's 3fp and 2fp. What does nasa mean? To lift up. Think NASA, right? We lift up spacecraft and go to the moon. NASA, right? NASA. And also the other nasa is to travel. So we travel to the moon. Okay, so how will I translate this? They or you, plural, imperfect, nasa, will lift up. Good. All right. Now, maybe you're not convinced that you've got this this parsing right, and I could see why that would be the case. But take a look at the principal parts page, and look at the imperfect 3FP, 2FP in your forms, like for nagash and nafal. And you're going to see tigashna and tipolna for your forms. The prefixing all looks normal. It's just the internal vowels are a little bit different because I have a 3 aleph verb here, right? And remember, 3 aleph verbs are going to get the segol aleph before the na ending in the imperfect. All right, now let's look at number 3. I have matsil. Matsil. Looking at that verb form, it's possible for you to think, oh, well, maybe I just have 3 root letters here. Mem, tzadi, lamed. Do we have any verbs that have those 3 root letters? Matzal. We don't. We don't. And this sadi has a dot in it, doesn't it? What does that possibly tell us? Yeah, we have an assimilated noon, so the mem might not be root 1, but the noon assimilated might be root 1, and that means the mem might be doing something else. What might that mem represent? It might represent a participle. Good. If it represents a participle, then we're probably looking at the sadi lamed with what letter in front of it? Noon, natsal. Natsal. And is that one of our new verbs in this chapter? It is. What does it mean? Natsal. To deliver. To deliver or rescue. Good. The mem then would be a participle. And if it's a participle, the no ending on the backside of the lamed is what gender or number? Participles don't have number. They just have gender. I'm sorry, they don't have person. Just gender number, right? MS. Good. So I need to know what stem this is. How do I find that out? I look at the vowel under the mem. What vowel class is that? A class. And what stem takes A class vowels under the prefix like this? The hifil does. Good. So the hofal has a U class vowel, doesn't it? The kametz ketuf. Not a kametz, but a kametz ketuf. Now, yes. Yes, so the tzadi here, we have a kirik yod with it. That's also characteristic of the hifil, right? So there's really two clues here to tell me that this is a Hifil form. Excellent. Now, take a look at one of your columns here. On page 549 on your handout with the principal, not the principal parts, the weak verb paradigms, you're given the verb nagash, which is a one noon verb, and look at the Hifil participle and ask yourself, does the Hifil participle of nagash look like what I think is the Hifil participle of natsal, except for the actual consonants of the root letters? Does that look like the same vowel pointing? Magish with a doubling dot in the gimel of root 2. And this is matzil with a doubling dot in the sadi of root 2, right? So this is following my Hifil participle masculine singular form, for sure. Okay, so how would I translate this participle? Yeah, delivering, because Hifils are active. So I usually want ing forms, delivering. If it were the Hofal participle, it would be delivered, right, delivered. So, and it would be something like mutsal, not matzil, but mutsal. So, how would I say delivered pizza in Hebrew? Pizza, mutsa. We have to make it feminine, right? Pizza's got to be feminine. Ha pizza, ha mutsa. All right. Now look at number 4. Tikhu. Tikhu. Okay. If you look at the form, you've got a couple of possibilities. It may be that we have here the 3 root letters visible and a shurik on the back end, in which case this could be like a cal perfect or a cal imperative, right? But it's also possible that this tav is a prefix tav and not a root 1 tav. So this is one of the questions you got to ask yourself. Is takach one of our verbs that we've learned? And the answer is no. We don't have any verbs like that. So it might be that the kach part is roots 2 and 3. So what is the typically weak letter where it could show up missing? Typically noon. So is nakach one of my verbs? No, that's also not a verb. Is there another verb that likes to do funky things like this? Ah, yes. I have a verb that has multiple personalities, don't I? And lakach is one that is a one lamed verb, but it thinks it's one noon in the cal stem, and it behaves like that. So it's assimilated into the the kof here, but I don't get the doubling dot that I wished I had, does it? Why not? Why is the doubling dot missing? It should have been tikkahu. Yes, you remember good old Squinum Levy? Kof is a Squinum Levy letter. What happens with Squinum Levy? If I have a vocal shava and a dagesh forte with a Squinum Levy letter, which one usually falls out? I'm going to lose my dagesh forte frequently. Okay? And then I'll get a silent shava. So tikkahu became tikhu. Tikhu. All right? So, same subject. I'm sorry, not same subject. We have the same tav, but instead of now we have shurik. So, which person, gender, number is that? It's imperfect. What? 2MP. Good. What stem is it? I have my good old Keurig under the tav prefix. No doubling dot or kamets in this consonant over here, so it's probably the cal imperfect, right? Nifal imperfect would be the doubling dot with the kamets under it. Okay, so cal imperfect 2MP. How am I going to translate this? Lakach means to do what? To take. To take. So this would be translated how? You will take. You will take. All right. Good. Let's look at number 5. We have tenase. Tenase. Do we have 3 visible root letters here? Na, sa. Yeah, we actually have them all, don't we? And the tav prefix with no ending. What's that? That's imperfect. 3fs or 2ms, right? Okay. Is it the cow? Nifal, pl, pual, what is that? That's right. I have a Keurig, which could happen with the cow or the nifal imperfect, but I've got a doubling dot and a Kometz under root 1. That is nifal. Okay? Now, go ahead and take a look at your weak verb paradigm. Look at the nifal imperfect. 3fs. Do you see for the verb nagash, you have tenagesh? Tenagesh, does that look like tenase? Yeah. Same vowel pattern, except different root letters, right? Tenagesh, tenase. So this is matching in every way. What does nasa mean in the cow? To lift up. And in the nifal, it's going to make the meaning passive. To be lifted up. So how am I going to translate this nifal imperfect? 3fs. She will be lifted up. 2ms. You will be lifted up. All right. Very good.